It's Chelsea.
It's Nina.
And you're in the Critics' Kingdom. So today, we're going to be talking about Brink!
I do have a question for you before we begin, though. Chelsea, when you woke up this morning, did you think, today I'm going to talk, or today I'm going to skate?
I said, today I'm going to skate.
As we all do, right? Like, that's
right.
how you wake up every day.
Right. And those are your only two options.
There's no in between.
Talking or skating.
So let's be real very quickly. I love the shit out of this film. It's unabashed. Like, it's totally... It's just how I feel about it. I've always loved it. It's always been one of my, like, favorite Disney Channel original movies. By miles. I don't know how you felt about it when you were younger, but that was me. So this was very fun, like, just revisiting it again.
I enjoyed Brink, especially because Christina Vidal is in it, and...
Taina for y'all who know.
Okay, that's all I can sing without copyright. But you know the rest of it if you know.
Mm-hmm. So, Blue Mascara.
Yes, Blue Mascara. So I loved her. So I automatically really like this movie just because she was in it. Yeah, definitely a very fun one
with her.
Yeah, and this one came out this was only the third DCOM ever made. It came out in 98, at early 98. So it's definitely
well done.
In a very well done one. I feel like all their early ones were pretty
banging.
Yeah.
That's how they got the ball rolling well. That's how they knew that they could make it last.
They gotta get you on the hook.
I was hooked, girl.
Yeah.
I was on a hook. I don't know when I saw it. I feel like I saw it way after it came out.
Yeah, because we were I
don't think I had cable when it came out. I definitely didn't.
We were
5. Yeah.
When this came out.
I didn't watch it when it came out.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I definitely, because I also was I probably didn't see it till maybe 2000 or 2001
yeah,
or
somewhere in there. But
I was 7 or 8, but...
I drank it.
Yeah.
Like water. It was so good.
Disney, and I think we've talked about this before, Disney manages to find all those random sports and then just go full on into them, and there's can we make a whole DCOM around this?
Yeah, and rollerblading or inline skating, as they say in this. I don't think that there's a difference, but in case there is, it's, let's say, inline skating.
Yeah, it's...
all
the words are in a row.
Yeah, that was a real thing when this was happening. I don't know. We can talk about that later. I have no idea if that's still something that kids do or are interested in at all. I know roller skating is popular again.
Yeah, roller skating's become a lot more popular.
Yeah, but I don't know necessarily about the inline situation. But yeah, I guess we could just sort of jump right in. Movie starts on the last day of summer.
Yeah. And
that little, are we gonna skate today? Are we gonna talk today? Bit is one of the first things that our main character Andy Brinker says to his crew when he meets them at the bus stop, because they're gonna go. I think it's called the pit that they're going to.
Yeah,
the skate park.
That's what they call the part of the skate park they go to.
Yeah. To go and skate around and practice for the last day of summer, which is really cute. We get introduced to the friends really early, and it's a cute little motley crew. Motley it's not really motley. It's 3 white boys and Gabby. So now, but they're fun. It's a fun little crew, good hearts it seems, and they call themselves soul skaters, as opposed to. Not professional skaters, but people who skate for money or for anything other, or promotional
for anything
material,
other than just the enjoyment of the
skating.
sport. Yeah.
And we meet those guys, right, who will be our main antagonists for the film, when they skate over to, instead of waiting for the bus, because they missed the bus because Brink is late.
Yeah.
He slept in. They go skate down to the pit, and they're using it. And then the sellout skaters, also known as Team X-Blades,
yes,
they show up with a camera crew because they're about to do a shoot,
a photo shoot
of some sort, and they really want to use the pit. So Val tricks them into getting off the pit by hurting one of them, which is a theme for this. This is our first example. It's fun of the overly aggressive white teenage boy that likes to push people down mountains.
Yep.
This is our first version of that. And he's very good at it. He's very convincing. I believe him. Val's fucking sucks. But yeah, so they have this little tiff. He gets them sort of off of the pit, and then he's like, "Oh, y'all left. You didn't leave somebody to defend it. It's ours now. Get out of here." So, they go home sad. And the next day is the first day of school. They all go to the same school. That's how they sort of know each other. So, the first day of school, they decide to get Val back by pulling what I genuinely think is one of the most iconic scenes of Disney Channel original movies on the whole. I don't know, Chelsea, if you agree with me on that. But, and a prank that I want to do to my little sister so badly. Obviously never did because I have a black mother and it would not have gone down well. Let's put it that way.
No.
But so they take worms and they put it in between sandwich bread. And they do this like real quick sleight of hand where they replace Val's sandwich that he just bought with their worm sandwich. And then you watch him bite into it and like pull back a mouthful of worms. It's disgusting and hilarious. Freaks out. And then a teacher sees him and is like, "Val, what's going on? Like, why are you freaking out?" And you look over, and it's just the 4 friends sitting in a row. Andy, his friend Pete, Jordy, and Gabby. And they each have a sign, and they hold it up one at a time, and it just spells out, "Don't be a wuss." So Val is like, nothing. But he's still, a bit peeved. Obviously,
he's fuming
inside
because he's like
slowly.
Public humiliation.
Yeah, he doesn't abide by that. Val likes to be the king of all things at all times.
Right.
So he is like, you know what? Let's race right here, right now. And then they turn like the school, like grounds into this dope race course with like. Where they have to like slide over rails and on like lunch tables,
overturn trash cans.
It's mad. Like I said, I really enjoyed this film.
It's cool. It's really cool.
It's mad fun. So they're racing and it's relay style.
Yeah.
Slapping hands instead of passing batons, but relay style inline skate racing. And as they're racing, one of Team X-Blade's members named Boomer, who is the first black person, or the first person of color that Val leaves to fend for himself after he is hurt in this sport. Yes. He, like, falls, and I think he hurts his ankle or something of that nature.
Yeah.
And the other team was in the lead, Brink's team was in the lead, the Soul Scares were in the lead, but Brink stops instead of continuing to go on. He stops to help Boomer out, because he's like, "What's wrong with you, Dada?" And he sends somebody to go get the nurse. Val finishes the race because, he's soulless.
Because he's Val.
He's literally soulless. And, well, obviously they go get the nurse, so that means now teachers are coming and all the children scatter. It's one of those, it's very organic. It's a real moment that happens in schools.
Right.
And so the teachers come, so now obviously they're all in trouble. And they all get suspended from school.
Right.
Which, because Brink has 2 live parents who are very present, they do not take it well. His dad in particular is like, "Really, bruh? It's been less than 6 hours. Like, how did you manage to get
It's your first day
suspended already?"
School.
And for skating, which he already kind of has this feeling that, Brink is sort of like too happy and just like go lucky all the time, that he doesn't really have a concept of like grounding, and maybe doesn't pay enough attention to important things. All he cares about is skating. So he's suspended. The next day, of course, all of his friends meet up. They're all suspended. They're all in trouble. It is very unclear as to how they are able to get out the house, how Brink's able to get out the house, because his dad is home on disability. So I don't really know. And his dad doesn't like him skating, so I don't know what he told him. Yeah. But, they're chilling out there, and they're all talking about, how much trouble they're in. I personally think that Pete, in particular, has a very rough home situation, it sounds like. He talks about his stepdad yelling and screaming, and his mom hiding in another room. So I don't take from that what you will. I went a little dark. It seems like Soap's home life is a little dark, but yeah, essentially because of so there's a suspension. They also learn that Boomer is actually quite hurt, and there's this big invitational coming up as well as a very big championship coming up. It's like the All-American inline championship, something of that nature. Yeah. And Boomer is now out for the count for that. So Team X-Blades is now looking for a new member. And of course, they're all at first like, man, screw that. Like, wow, they suck so much. But then later, Brink overhears his mom and his dad talking about how much they're struggling with money. And he decides to take it on himself. He's like, you know what, even though I hate these guys, like, maybe this will be a way for me to help out the family. So he goes to Val, and he skates for their agent, and the agent's like, ooh, yeah, do that thing. Like,
right, like, he's your
yeah, I need you to be on this team. And Val's like, okay, you can be on this team, but I run this. Just know that. And you gotta be nice to me in front of your friends. And because... oh, Val. But Brink is like, because he's trying to not lose his home. You know, he's trying to take care of the fam. He gets home, he's really excited to tell his parents. He's like, guys, I got a job, an after school job, and they're like, oh my god, great. And he's like skating, and his dad's like, what? No, absolutely not. You're not doing that.
Even though he'd be making a bunch of money.
Exactly. And his mom is kind of like, you don't have to worry about money. That's not your job. Because, again, good present parents. And his dad is like, I think it's a good idea for you to get a job. Because, again, he wants to ground his son in the, real world and make sure that he's going to be a responsible, productive citizen. And he's like, but it just can't be skating. He stays with the skaters anyway. He just figures that, he's not going to tell them. And he obviously is also keeping it from his friends because they hate each other, clearly. And again, he's now, quote unquote, selling out. Because now he's not skating just for the fun of it anymore. He's skating
to get
paid. And, a little bit
of the fame.
And the rank. And Brink wants to be somebody.
He does.
But then his dad tells him, he's like, oh, BT Dubs, though, I was so impressed by you saying that you want a job. I found you a job at the dog groomers. So now Brink has 3 jobs. Or Brink has
2 jobs.
He has 2 jobs
and
school. And he has to still skate with his friends because they're trying to be in the championship.
Right.
So he's being
the
stretched.
low-key captain.
Yeah, we get a nice little montage of him up from 7 a.m. till essentially 12 a.m., which doesn't seem... I don't know, I did that, but whatever. So from 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. every day, and he is stressed and he is struggling, and it is not a good time for him. And everyone can tell that he's not himself and being worn very thin.
Right.
So, all right. He's working on it. He's trying to figure it out. This invitational is coming up, and now he's in a pickle because he can't skate with Team X-Blades and with his team at the Invitational. And if he doesn't skate with one, he has to skate with one. Val's essentially like, you don't have a choice.
Right.
It's us. And plus he gets money for placing and things, extra money for placing and things and all of that. So he lies to his friends and tells them that he is sick. And since he's sick and now there are 3 instead of 4, they can't compete in it anymore. And he convinces them to not go to the Invitational at all, to just practice all day. Hops out of bed, goes with Team X-Blades, but the gag is that Gabby is like, you know what? Let's go look. Let's just go check this out. So they go to check it out, and Gabby, with her astute eye, immediately takes the other ones, they have to see him take his helmet off, because they're like, let's go see who the new guy is, We heard stuff about him. And Gabby immediately recognizes that it's Brink skating up on the half pipe.
Right.
So now there's a huge confrontation, and his friends are essentially like, yo, dude, you're trash. We're not about it anymore. Don't talk to us. Peace out. And he's, really hurt inside. But Val, in his creepy, emotionally manipulative way, is like, oh, screw him. You're gonna be all of this. And, you've got us, and they were whack anyway. They were lame. Now, Brink obviously doesn't really feel that way, but, he's a teenage boy, so he kind of just continues in the motions for a bit. And his parents can really, really tell that something is up. His little sister's like, I'm pretty sure something's going on with his friends, but I don't know the ins and outs of it. But she a truth teller in this, which is great. It's the same... Oh, I'm really upset that we didn't look up her name before this, actually. But it's this...
Katie Volding is her real name.
God, Chelsea, you're so good at that.
I think.
She is the same little sister that's in Smart House. And I don't know if you guys ever saw Au Pairs. The Au Pair, sweet, but she's great. She's always speaking truths to the world. So, basically... Now the teams are practicing for this championship, right? The Soul Skaters are trying to figure out a fourth man, trying to figure out who's going to do, in the case that they actually get to the finals, who's going to go down the downhill, not ramp, but the downhill course.
Yeah. And
because it's, really dangerous and all of this stuff. So they go down there to check it out. That same day... Team X-Blades also decides to go down to check it out. And when Val gets there and sees them, he's like, y'all gots to go. Because, Val owns everything he treads on. And Brink is trying to sort of keep the peace, and he's like, I don't really want, let's just bounce or whatever, but his friends are also pissed at him. So Gabby is like, you know what? No, how about we race for it? Me and you, Brink, let's do that, let's race. And he's like, Gabby, I don't want to race you. Because he doesn't want to fight them, because he loves them. And he's trying really hard to, be their friend again. They just aren't about it. But she's like, no, I want to do it. So, right before they start to race, they agree to race. Right before they start to race, Val, creepily, leans over to Brink and is like, yo, stay on the outside of that turn. The final turn. And Brink is like, that literally don't make no damn sense, Val. Why would I do that? And Val's like, boy, do what I say. So they go and they're racing, and we watch Val. He says that he's going to go down to the end to judge and make sure that,
Nobody
cheats. But it's so he can cheat. And he...
Because of course.
And he cheats by taking gravel and throwing it onto the road on the inside of that turn. So that when Gabby comes down, she will slip. It'll mess up her traction. She'll slip on it, which is exactly what happens. And she scrapes up her arm pretty horribly. And again, Brink doesn't finish the race. He stops to try to help Gabby. Obviously, she's not having any of it, and all of her friends are Pete and Jordy get away from her, leave her alone. And Val is sort of yelling at Brink boy, finish the race. You gotta finish the race. And Brink is that's one of my best friends. You're crazy. Right. Anyway, the Soul Scares bounce with Gabby to get her help. And then we see Brink sort of on the pier with the rest of Team X-Blades after this exploit, and Val's just still being a jerk about it. And he's talking smack about his friends, and Brink in a moment he's like, you know what? Screw this. And he quits Team X-Blades, tells Val about himself, and then pours a chocolate shake over Val's head that makes him look like light-skinned friend look like Michael Jackson. That's what Val becomes in that moment.
For 3 seconds.
For 3 seconds, it's a great shot. It's always stuck with me. And we see him go and visit Gabby. Her mom lets him in, and Gabby essentially, she tells him about himself, and she reads him. She's like, you sold out. That's what you did. And he sort of explains that, he was in a bind, and she's just like, it always starts out that way. You start out and you're just doing it for a little bit for this, but then the next thing you know, you become a sellout. And you're the one who came up with the term soul skating. You're the reason, that we all approach skating the way that we do, and you're the reason that, we do it for the love of it, and we don't let anybody mess with our heads about that. So you should just remember that and be a better person about that. Now they have not reconciled. Let's make that very clear. But But, okay, so he's like, all right, goes home, and he's still, a little sad. And his dad sees him out here, and I think his dad is in a place now where he's realizing how much, even though he complained about it, he actually loved having a kid that was, bouncy and all over the place. So he's like, bruh, like, what's going on? And they have a conversation, and a real conversation, which apparently is tough for them to have. And his dad just, like, he essentially tells him that, he understands, like, sort of why he did what he did, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that it's not about what he does. It will never be about what he does. It's about if he's a good person, and if he's a good son, and if he's a good friend, and that's who Andy Brinker is. Andy Brinker is not the skates, or, the dog groomer, or Team X, or Soul Skater. Like, that isn't who he is. Who he is essentially the company he keeps, and how well he keeps it, and how he treats people. And so, sort of off those words, we go and we see Gabby, Pete, Jordy. They're really trying to get a team together. And by that, I mean get themselves together, because Brink is the best skater on that team by miles.
Right.
He's the best skater in the air, but, like, he's so good. That's the whole point. And they're essentially, like, practicing, and it's not necessarily going well. Their skates are busted. Brink shows up, and he's like, yo, I'd, like, trade in 2 months' salary to get my job at the Dog Groomers to sponsor us. We'll be Team Pup and Suds. Or he doesn't say will be. He throws them gear, new skates and everything. He's like, all right, go forth if you want. And they're like, all right, man, come back. Because we kind of forgive you. We're teenagers, We can only stay mad for so long. And great. Now they're competing in the finals. We go and we see them at this championship. And at first, Brink has a little mishap because he hasn't skated in a little bit, I guess. And, a lot's going through his head. And his sister is like, yo, bro, just skate better. And he's like, yo, skate better. That's all I got to do. And then Team Pup and Suds, like, they just bust it out. They come through, like, dark horse climbing. We get a really nice scene of them doing that.
Yeah.
It's really fun, like, just watching all the skating.
The skating scenes are shot very well at the end.
They really are. They're mad good. I ate that shit up. But so they place second, and placing second means that now the best member of each team gets to compete in the downhill course for who wins. Team X places first, so it's going to be Val and Brink down the downhill course, where Val mauled, assaulted,
whatever you
caught
want
in
to
the
call
trap,
it.
whatever you want to call it,
with
Gabby. So they're racing, and, it's going fine. And then Val essentially realizes that he's going to lose. So Val falls. And Andy's like, oh, snap. He goes over, and he's like, bro, are you okay? And Val's like, yo, like, he's, like, in mad pain. Grabs his hand, and Val pulls him down and gets up and just like, haha, you fool. You never did learn to finish a race. And then he takes off. But Val is dumb because ESPN is right there with cameras, and they get the whole thing. But, Andy doesn't, he just gets back up, he shrugs it off, he figures out a shortcut, takes that shortcut, like, Val is mad shocked when he comes jumping out the alley.
Yeah.
and then, he's long-limbed, so he makes that time up, and he comes in first. And Team Pup and Suds wins the championship, and Val loses all his endorsements because ESPN has broadcasted to the whole world that he is a snake. And all is right in the world of Brink. And that is how the film ends.
Yeah. Yeah. And his whole family's there, too.
Yeah, they are, and they're cheering him on. His dad got his job back, too.
Yeah.
He's off disability, got his job back. It's just a pleasant ending.
It is.
In the end, everybody is happy.
It all ends well. So I guess to get into the review portion of it, we have the Soul Skaters. And then I think you just get into the whole idea that they come up with a few times. The idea of, like, that you're a sellout if you do things for money, which is
not, it doesn't
it's like,
quite
I don't
track.
think those two things automatically correlate, but I also see how in 1998, being a teenager that those two things would. And it's very funny because it's like the opposite of now, where I feel like most teenagers now are like, if I can get sponsored, that is the goal.
I'm trying to monetize.
I'm trying to make money.
All of my skills.
And so it's so funny, even just how like teenagerdom has changed in like the past 20 years.
It's very true.
But yeah, like I'm just the whole idea of like if you go and do something for money that you're automatically no longer doing it from the heart. Which is not
true, and you can even
accurate.
argue the exact opposite, that sometimes, like, once you're being paid for it, you can now pursue it with the full fervor of passion.
Right.
Because now you don't have to worry, and they're teenagers, so they don't necessarily understand this, and this is exactly what Brink ends up grappling with.
Right.
But that, like, now you don't have to worry about income anymore. You don't have to worry about money. You're not working a 9-to-5 and trying to do something you love.
Right.
Not in a career way, but have to make time to do something that you love.
Yeah.
What you do is what you love.
Yeah, this film is interesting because it actually tackles like career issues, but in high school. Because it's like you have that idea that you're, speaking about, where it's like you don't have to, you can do more than one thing can be true at the same time. And then also when he has that talk with his dad, and like the main point that his dad gets across to him, that his dad had only recently learned being on disability, was that he's like, I for so long was defined by my name, I forgot his name in the thing, but something Brinker. Jimmy Brinker, yeah, and Foreman. And he's like, and then I got hurt, and now I've been disabled for like 8 months or however long it had been, and he's like, and I felt so lost. Like, I didn't know what that meant because I couldn't define myself anymore, and that's how I defined myself. And he ended up telling Brinkus, he's like, you can't define yourself by what you do because you're just going to end up in this cycle. Mm-hmm. And that's, at the end of the day, what you do is not who you are, necessarily. Like, I think for some people it correlates, and I feel like nowadays it's more correlating with, like, our generation.
I think it's also that now there's more tailoring, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
People aren't... That's a very important thing in 1998 when there's so many office jobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and there's still a lot of office jobs.
Right. It was a different time and a different mindset in regards to career at that time. But but they very much try to get across that you were not what you do, even if you are great at it. Yeah. Even if you're the best at it.
And even if you do love it, the way that he loves to skate. His dad's like, if you woke up tomorrow and you couldn't skate,
you would still be you.
You would still be you, and I would still love you, and your friends would still love you. Right.
It doesn't make you any less or any more of your person, depending on what you do. And I feel like that's also just, like, a very good lesson, even to learn as, like, an adult. Yeah, like, because I feel like it's so easy to get caught up in what you do. And that's all we do now, is everything has a label. It's like, oh, okay, but what do you do? What's your job? Like, that's the first thing that people ask on, like, dates or... whatever it is, you meet somebody new, it's like, okay, where do you work at? Like, it's so easy to get caught up in that versus...
And that's always, even you think about, like, back in college, where it's like, oh, what's your major?
Right.
It's very much...
We're very, very label-focused, I think, here.
Because I think that's sort of how we conceptualize, how do you contribute to society?
Right.
Not necessarily considering that just by... That it's also a big contribute to society to be a good person. Mm-hmm. Arguably, America would be a better place if people thought that was the best way to contribute to society.
It's my favorite form of capitalism. Labels.
Yeah, you got to know what it is so you can put a dollar sign on it.
So you can be like, ooh, how much you
Here's
make?
The product.
Right. How much you make. But yeah, no, I feel like that's just a good lesson to learn, like, no matter what age you are. It's just like, you are not to be... You should not be defined by what you do.
And it's told in such a fun way.
It is.
Because it's interesting because it doesn't happen, like, I don't think all of the sports movies are shot well. A lot of them are shot really well. But some of them are really not. But this is one where it is just shot really well. Where, like, I know, like, I didn't rollerblade as a kid. I wanted to. My dad took me out for one lesson and never took me out again. He tries to say that, like, he tried to, and I'm like, that's just not objectively not true.
You're like, I know it, that's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
My parents made me do inline skating lessons, so I actually was, like, pretty decent at it.
Oh, dude, privileged child you.
Yeah. No, they wouldn't let me quit. I think my mom bought a package. That's literally what it was. It was like, because I didn't want to go, I fell the first time. I didn't want to go back. And my mom was like, no, you're going back.
It's literally the exact opposite of what happened to me.
Yeah, no.
It's like, I was really about it. It just didn't happen.
Yeah,
and I wasn't allowed to go to the
choice.
park by myself, so it's not like I could learn on my own.
Right.
Mom was not letting me put roller skates on in the house. That was not going to happen.
Right.
But yeah, like, it's a fun medium to do that in.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, and I also really like the friendship in this one.
Yeah.
Even so, Gabrielle's an interesting. I really identified with Gabriella when I was younger because I was a tomboy of color, and she's a tomboy of color in this. And I come from an immigrant background. Everyone comes from an immigrant background in America, but I'm a first generation immigrant in America. Or anyway, my parents are
Your
immigrants.
parents came over, yes.
And directly. On a plane, not a boat. It wasn't. So it's very easy for me to identify with immigrants of all backgrounds on television. Like, I've just always known that to be true. Even recently, I bonded with, or I, laughed harder at Fresh Off the Boat before I did at Blackish. Because that's just, it's the through line that more directly resonates with me. Because my experience isn't necessarily African American, per se. Anyway, the point being, I really identify with Gabby, but it's like, rewatching it now, it's this thing of... Again, at the time, it was progressive to, have her be... To have one of their best friends be, a woman of color, for sure.
And a Latina.
Yeah, but they do fall into that, the spicy tomboy trope. That's not exactly great.
Yeah.
But outside of that, the friendships in this, I think, I like the way that they portray it. I like that, Pete is the one that Pete gives him a riot act. I like that Gabriella that they hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just a general, it's always nice to see that, especially in children's television, because it's important that children learn to do that. To hold themselves and to hold each other accountable for things, because that makes them into responsible, accountable adults.
Yeah, because Gabriella even early on calls them out, when they say, I think Brink or Pete says, oh, you guys, let's go somewhere, and she's like, why is it you guys?
Yeah.
And it's like she just, straight up calls it out, and they were like, oh,
they're
I don't
it's
know.
just an expression. Yeah. I think one of them says...
And then she's like, then why don't we say you girl? It's like she makes them question it a little bit more.
Team X-Ways likes to make jokes about Mexico, and she's like, "Boo boo, I'm Peruvian."
Yeah,
at least get it right.
These two things don't apply.
Yeah,
they're very different countries, very different cultures. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I don't know. I appreciate that in this film as well.
I agree. No, I think it's nice, and especially having her in there as the sole woman, because X-Ways doesn't have any women.
X-Ways does not have any women. That's true.
So she's basically the only woman in the entire film. But yeah, it's they all support each other and they all can lean on each other whenever they need it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they hold each other accountable. And that is a good thing for kids to learn. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I liked it when I was younger too. It's just a good film, and I think you have some solid lessons that you can learn out of it, and it's fun.
The slang is great.
Yeah,
it's this weird combination of surfer and 90s hip hop culture.
Yeah, early,
which is what 90s late 90s slang
when hip hop
was.
started becoming mainstream. It's very much, you can tell. They even say fat with a PH.
With a PH, we had the subtitles on, y'all.
And we were
that's that's what it said in the script.
And I was like, oh no, this is when people used fat unironically.
Like the farm.
Yes. Like the baby.
Like the baby in the farm.
Like the baby in the farm. But yes, it's definitely it's a time capsule of a movie.
For sure. That's a very good way to describe it.
Yeah. I
do sort of wonder what it's like for kids experiencing it for the first time. Now, between ages, 5 and 10 or 5 and 12, however old you are when you're watching stuff like this. Like, I wonder how they respond to it. But, I don't know, will you show it to your kids?
Yeah, I think it's a fun one. And it's like, the action shots are all done so well.
The production design is great.
Yeah, the production design is really
His
good.
room is so expressive.
His room is great.
Thought out.
I wish that these production designers were on other Disney movies.
Where were they on Twitches, y'all?
Yeah. They did her room well, but yeah. Yeah, no, this one it was like, I don't know if it was also maybe because it was probably able to be shot pretty locally because it takes place in SoCal, like in like LA area.
That's also, yeah.
So it's like you really only needed probably like 3 or 4 actual locations. But yeah, it's definitely like, it looks real.
Yeah.
I think like I feel like a lot of the early ones looked very real. Like even Smart House I didn't have any issues with the production design.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a stage.
Yeah.
It looks like they're outside.
It looks pretty real.
I don't know if that's true, or if it's just the fact that they're using, like, their lot. You know, like, the studio's lot that's been there forever, so it all...
Disney also has, like, an insane, like, amount of sets. So, I'm sure they have, like, Roller Derby number 3 or something.
Roller Derby number 3. That definitely exists.
Yeah, they're like, just take a left on lot number 6.
100%.
Off Wisteria Lane. I actually don't even know if Desperate Housewives was on ABC, but...
I think it was, actually.
Oh.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know either. But you know. So it's like, that part is definitely well done. And yeah, it's like a great like friendship film. And I do think it is a very important lesson to learn that you should not be defined by what you do and even what you enjoy. But it's like, you're so much more than that.
Yeah. That's real.
What about you?
So, my kids will watch this. There's really not a choice in the matter. Even if they hate it. Because it's a situation of, like, I want my kids to watch this so that I have an excuse to rewatch it, you know? And I gotta feel, like, weird about it, about being, like, 47, and, like, I'm gonna just turn on Brink today.
Watching Brink.
And eating, like, kale. Like, I don't want, like, alone in my apartment. Like, that's... Or in my house. Like, I don't necessarily want that situation. So, you know, I would love to be like, hey... let's watch a movie. And that's what we're going to watch. That's what Mommy wants to watch is Brink. Because it's still, I think it holds up. Like, I still, you know, Chelsea, I was laughing the whole way through it.
Yeah.
I really was cackling like a witch through the entire film. And there's, like I said, there's nothing to, like, you know, like I said, Gabriella's, certain aspects of the way Gabriella is portrayed and written are a little problematic, but I don't necessarily know if they're glaringly so that it would make this not an option for my kids. And yeah, I just really, really like it. I really, really like it. And
yeah. I think it's definitely worth a rewatch if you vaguely remember it as a child and you're like, you know, what I would say, like, yeah, rewatch it.
Would you still enjoy it?
Yeah.
I would actually love to know if people still enjoy it the way that I
enjoyed it.
Again. And I also would be really curious to know if people, like, with kids now who are watching this, or with, you know, youngsters in your life, little brothers, little sisters, cousins, the whole shebang.
Right.
You know, if they've never seen it, like, if you sit down with them and watch it, what's their sort of take on it? Yeah. Or if they, not their take, because they're, you know, children, but if they enjoy it. Because I really do think that it still holds up as a nice wild ride.
Do they know what inline skating is the other question.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure. Because everything's hoverboards now.
98 was like
even though they look ridiculous on them.
98 was a weird... the 90s were an interesting period because action-adventure sports got very popular.
Yeah.
Like, the X Games became a thing, I want to say, only in the... Like, I don't think they were as much of a thing in the 80s. And then you had, like, the rise of Tony Hawk and, like, all of these, like...
And skater games, like video games and stuff like that. It was
I feel like it was like the rise of that whole like culture. So it just made like it's like
the rise of it to the forefront of like the media was
to
paying
mainstream,
attention
to being mainstream. Because I'm like yes, like Disney did go out to random places in LA, I'm sure, and like ask children what they did.
Which only Disney can do and like
right.
not get arrested.
Like I'm sure that was happening too. But I do think that this was also something that made sense for the time period because kids were like, I remember, I don't think I ever actually watched the X Games, but I 100% knew what the X Games were,
and
like
even,
as a child.
And even like Brink's look, Erik, what's his last name?
Erik Von Detten.
Erik Von Detten, who, by the way, like he was a TV child star. You know what I mean? He was a TV of the week child star. So
shout out to him.
Shout out to him for real. Also, R.I.P. to the
dad.
To the dad.
Yeah, he was in the Police Academy series, if you guys have ever seen that.
But yeah, like even the way that, Andy Brinker, because I really do like saying his whole name.
Andy Brinker.
Like the way that he always looks wet.
Yeah.
Well, like, why does he always look that he just got out the shower?
Yeah.
Like, it's very authentic to its time period.
It was.
I
specifically remember going to school, even in like, not in 98, but, like, once I started going to, like, elementary school, which was, like, 2000-ish era. And, like, that was, like, a look for the white boys. Like,
and it was a look for anyone with the hair that could do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
I
feel like I remember... Because I feel like I remember... I only experienced it from a television standpoint, but I feel like I remember, in particular, I don't know, in my head I'm seeing a girl with dark hair, but like two really long strands coming down the front, and it's up in a ponytail, but it somehow also still looks wet. And she's wearing clogs. I don't know what that's from. But
I think the two strands was a thing.
Yeah, it was a thing, but there was a way to make him look wet. The way that he looks wet.
No, I feel like having your hair look wet was like a thing from like the late 90s to like the 2004 or 5. Like I don't know what it was. It was like that wet and wavy, but like
but it wasn't necessarily
wet.
Yeah, but it wasn't necessarily wavy. It was just wet.
It was literally just wet.
And by the way, I don't think it was actually wet. We're saying
no, it was
wet
definitely like it
right
looks
now.
wet. It's like y'all remember when Beyonce did the BET performance of of Freedom, and like she had the wet wig, but it wasn't actually wet. It was like that. It was like you put enough like mousse or whatever they were using back then, Aquanet. I don't know.
Aquanet.
It makes it look like like you just stepped out of the shower, but it stays like that all day.
It was the like straight hair equivalent of the Jerry curl.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
It was definitely a look for
with less drip.
Yeah,
but it was supposed to look like it dripped.
Yes,
and not drip like the cool drip that we use now. Not that type of drip.
No, but
literal.
Dripping.
Droplets.
Dripping. But yes, no, it was probably the white people's Jerry curl. But yeah, that was very much a look then. And that's why I said, I'm like, this movie is very much a time capsule for for 98. And I feel like other Disney movies aren't necessarily like that, but this one, I don't know what it is about it, but they like captured 1998 in Los Angeles, like what I would imagine it to have been, but then just also what the general trends were in all over mainstream
for sure at that
point.
And I do think it is kind of beloved,
Yeah, I feel like
I'm not sure, but I feel like it is a bit of a beloved film. I feel like I'm not alone at all in the way I feel about it. There are many of us across America.
Right.
So
you're definitely not new.
Yeah, I want you all to watch it and
let us know what you guys think.
Let us know that you're here.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think. Get yourself on your Heelys.
If you still have
do that little run that the kids used to do, and then they would just go slide for 3 seconds.
They were I thought those were the dumbest things I had ever seen, and it was hilarious because my little cousin loved them. She had a pair, and like she was always in them. It was just this thing of like just watching children like in a living room, like rolling in circles with their
running and then
it was like. R.I.P. the Healy, man.
Is this still a thing? Oh my god, let us know.
If it is still a thing,
please let us know.
Please let us know. And now I also really want to buy Heelys for like my little cousin to drive his parents crazy, because he will not take them off.
Of course not.
And it would be so fun.
Because it's like one of those things that this is A, dumb, but B, also ingenious.
Exactly. You know how much money they made?
Because kids also love that. They're like, wait, you mean it's like a shoo-shoo, but then I can also just roll around? Because if I remember correctly, when they came out, schools banned them. Because people would kids would just be rolling around.
Rolled around the halls. And teachers were like,
but then also having to do that weird run to start rolling around. Like, it's... I just always see the weird run in my head.
Oh, yeah. What an era, man. What an era. But, yeah.
That should be the next DCOM. They missed out, honestly.
About Healy?
That should have been the 2008. That should have been the DCOM Healy team or something.
Yeah, I think that's the big takeaway from this film for me, is that it's a time capsule of film. It's one that, if you've seen it before, it's like a great throwback. It's just going to put you in that place again.
Yep.
And you're going to be that age again, like when it came out, when you saw it for the first time, and that's going to be fun. And it's possibly, I would imagine, something that you can share with somebody for the first time, too.
Yeah.
Which would be really fun to be like.
And they would probably
they'd be like, wait, like, that's the thing? You guys used to do that? Like, it's like, yeah. We used to talk like that. Yeah, we used to,
We used to say, fat!
And soul, and it's a soul skaters. Like, that's fun. Team Pop and Suds. Like, I want one of those shirts with the dog and the bubbles on it. Like, that was dope. It was cool stuff. So, yeah, definitely throw it on.
We'd recommend.
Throw it on
we recommend
one
that
night.
way. You
Light
guys watch
viewing.
it.
It's a good time.
It is.
And on that note, we will catch you next week.
See ya. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Critics Kingdom. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify and SoundCloud so you can stay up to date, as well as interacting and letting us know what you guys think on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Critics Kingdom and on Instagram at The Critics Kingdom. We're excited to talk to you again next week.